Great. Welcome everyone to our June 1st meeting and our last meeting with our fearless leader. This is probably one of your last ones as far as we are the last. The last. The best for last. All right.
I couldn't ask for a better group to go out.
To go out. We'll see. We'll have a little fun tonight.
We're gonna miss you, Bob.
We are absolutely
I
gonna
miss you guys too.
Absolutely gonna miss you. Okay, first topic is review of the meeting minutes. As usual, Melinda, we did a wonderful job summarizing as far as I was concerned. We had a lot of discussion that night. Did anybody have any updates or changes to the meeting minutes?
No, you just forgot to mention, I was like a deer in headlights, but that's okay.
Well, you may have been a deer in headlights, but we didn't necessarily completely think you were a deer.
Okay.
All right, then I would say the minutes are approved. Great. Okay, so for this evening, we've got a few topics to cover, but first is an update from PM Computing as to see how things have been going.
Thank you for having us in. I know
Thanks for coming in.
This is about about 2 years removed from the first time that we were scheduled to meet. So again,
yes.
Thank you for having us in. So I'm going to touch on the high points.
Great.
For the most part. Specifically going to cover the network upgrades that have gone on, status of items related to the police department, town hall, and just some general other items as well that we've accomplished.
Okay, great.
So the first, let's speak of the network upgrades. In town hall, we replaced the aging sonic wall access points with new ubiquity access points, including a ubiquity security gateway, and just recently with switches in preparation for the new phone system being implemented. This allows for a much more reliable and faster internet experience given the age of the equipment that was previously in place. We also expanded the overall coverage. As you can see, we actually have an access point here now as well. The other nice thing about the hardware that we selected and installed is that there's no additional licensing fees or hardware upgrade fees. So these purchases can actually be classified as a capital expenditure as opposed to an operational expenditure, which means that it's easier to absorb into the overall cost of any budget going forward. And it allows for more flexibility within the budget, the IT budget specifically, because we don't have to incorporate $1,000 renewals for Sonic Wall and Barracuda. And the like. So we also did the same installation in the police department as well. And the Department of Public Works, we've also installed switches and new access points. Now there's one unified network for staff all across the campus property. And DPW has their own network built into that, piggybacked onto that as well. Okay. And again, all this hardware was selected and installed for overall reliability, durability, and flexibility. And if I had one more ability to put in there, I would. Now, in terms of the police department, we've started replacing the aging desktops that are being used in the squad. So far, 6 PCs have been replaced. 4 additional units have been put into place also from repurposed workstations throughout the building here. And we also replaced one of the Panasonic Tough Books in the one cruiser.
Okay.
We also completed the installation of monitors in the police department as well. We completed 4 last week that are going to be utilized for viewing the camera system, specifically the holding cell areas, by officers, no matter what part of the police department they're in, with the exception of the garage. So that software will be being installed by LTech Security, who is the vendor for the camera system.
Okay.
So the locations are the squad room, the break room, the sergeant's office, and the detective's office. We also managed to replace the police department server. And this actually ended up being a reduction in hardware because of the way everything had previously been put into place. They were using a proprietary software to handle remote desktop access. And by reducing that hardware and minimizing the amount of equipment, what we've been able to accomplish is that with the deployment of that server, we now have folder redirections for all users. So that means that any officer, whether it be in the cruiser via remote desktop or downstairs in the squad room, have access to all of their files as needed, agnostic of where they choose to sit. And then lastly for the police department is creating the preparation and space for the hardware requirements needed for the body-worn cameras. So that way there is the rack space to secure the equipment for the new server that will be coming in, and also space for the cameras racks themselves for where the officers dock. In town hall, again, I mentioned the reduction. The major thing up here has been the reduction in hardware and software requirement licensing, especially those big annual or biannual purchases. So in terms of the Sonic Wall, we've migrated to Ubiquity. We've migrated from the Barracuda email and device backup to a cloud-based system provided by Enable. And the nice thing about this is that those licenses are only affected by the total user count. So if there are more employees, you can easily flex the license up and down. With the Barracuda hardware, you would have to actually either replace or add if that was to be the case. Plus, there's unlimited storage versus the 2 terabytes of storage on the Barracuda devices. We also upgraded the AV system in here. As you can see, we've got the TVs. We have the 2 ATEM Blackmagic Pro switcher, Mini Pros switchers in both here and in the council chambers, which allows for us to really utilize the fact that we have this hybrid meeting setup. And it's something that when we first were approached about the project was something that we didn't really anticipate it needing to be used in the way that it was, but it's nice because it has been able to adapt as things arise. We also deployed for the inspectors and fire marshal Surface Pro 7s so that they can actually access their documents and issue citations in the field if needed. So they actually have mobile printers now with them. In the Department of Public Works, we employed an iPad with the GPS receiver so that that connected with the GIS software allows for internal staff to go out and actually update maps as needed as well. And there's a lot more that I could go over, but one of the key focuses that Bob, Tricia, and I have been talking about is how do we get rid of our reliance on the actual physical server hardware. And so we've rolled out several SharePoint sites. It's actually 15 in total, covering everything from AAC to EAC, administration, town council. I know the technology committee, of course, has one. And the like, I know that Jeff Wisner is going to be using SharePoint heavily for his volunteers for emergency management as well. That coupled with all of our day in and day out tasks, we feel that this has been a very, very solid partnership for the last 3 years. And I welcome any questions that I can answer for you.
Anybody have any questions?
A lot of work.
Yeah.
They've done a ton. They've done a ton.
He can say that because he's on his way out. But, this has been, just because this is being recorded, and as many jokes as I like to make about everything, and Bob can attest to this, you'll be sorely missed by myself, I know, and everybody else here. So
Yes.
we wish you nothing but the best going forward.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I do have one question, is going forward, based upon what you know, is there some areas that we as a technology committee should be really looking at that we haven't been talking about? Because we've talked about a number of things, but just, thinking more along the lines, as well as our first responders or other things that we should be really focused on going into 2023 and beyond.
I can actually answer that in a couple of parts, but I am long-winded at times. That's why I kept my notes. In terms of the police department, that the infrastructure down there is aging a bit. And the same goes with up here as well. And one of the things that I would really recommend at looking at going forward, whether this be in conjunction with a renovation project that goes on, is that the wiring, specifically the Ethernet wiring, is been kind of ramshackle and layered upon itself. And same with the telephone system as well. And speaking with the third generation, the new telephone providers today, in speaking with them, that actually them seeing the drop panels downstairs beneath us, they were astonished at how much had been piecemealed and added on over time. So I think it would be very, very beneficial. Additionally, looking at physical ways that we can move the server location, I think is going to be a big thing to do, so that the staff can get their lunchroom to themselves, of course.
Right.
We've already managed to reduce the amount of clutter in there, and I use clutter very liberally in that sense, because I hate unorganized wires, and that's just me. But those things, plus I think there needs to also be a better dissemination of communication across not only the different committees and the council, but I think that rolling out a system that will combine the phone system with the an application like Microsoft Teams, which would allow for a very flexible work from home policy, because you would be able to actually ensure that people were logged in when they said they're logged in, and actually be able to track them. So that way, if a phone call comes in and the distribution goes to, well, I'm going to pick on Bob, but if the phone call comes in, you can see that Bob's available. If Bob's here, Bob's working from home, and setting those statuses. I know that's a little bit outside of the scope of what you were asking, but I think those are the most pressing needs going forward.
Okay.
And that, and I hate to put Bob on the spot, but I remember the first day I came to the meeting, I had asked, and I think it was council too, well, we're doing this renovation. Did we, that was the question I had, did we allot for any upgrade into wiring?
The steps that we would take in order to do any physical work. Right now, we have focused on windows and HVAC. In my mind, the next step was actual physical changes to the building, maybe moving walls, doing things like that. At that point, I think wiring has to be part of it. It's going to be by necessity.
Yeah, and it
But-
probably makes for the most opportune time. as well.
Yeah,
Well, so I think since they're doing the HVAC, and you're gonna be removing ceilings to get into,
well, and
that would be the
may
perfect
be.
opportunity to get in there and do that.
Yeah, agreed.
So I mean,
Or
you
at
can then
least,
talk freely, put that down.
yeah, or at least do the locations that aren't gonna change much.
Yeah,
Right. Well, you're not, you're going to probably hit them, they're not
But
going
I mean,
to.
it just saves you money.
Yeah.
In the long run, you're saving money. If it's already exposed, you get it in there, as opposed to putting in a new HVAC system and then having to remove some of the ceiling to put in wire.
Would you move the server rack up here downstairs?
In a perfect world, I would put them, I would combine the networks a
Mhm.
little bit more so that the police department was not independent and consolidate that equipment a little bit more. Given that they are, and given, if it was a complete gut of town hall, then I would say yes. Easier to cool, less expense there.
Mhm.
But I think in the interim, it would be better to probably convert the storage area right immediately adjacent to where the lunchroom is and the server rack currently is, and convert that into a space.
A
to
server,
use.
a server room.
So cut down on the dirt and dust and.
And that room is exceedingly cold, and there's already a huge, there's a huge vent and air uptake in there as
Yeah.
well. So it just makes the most sense, plus it would be the path of least resistance in terms of adjusting the wire.
Got it. Got it. Any other questions?
I think the only other thing that I'll mention to expand on what Andy's talking about is that I think as you're looking, well, we'll get into it in the next item, but as you're looking at website options, as you're looking at overall, the overall operation, trying to do it with the eye on efficiency, something, and where I'm going with it is something like a website application like Granicus that has modules that allow for public interaction, audio visual from remote locations, agenda building, things that all are incorporated into the process so that you just have one stop and everyone is working off the same platforms.
And ideally, it cuts down on paper, that's a huge expense. Not to mention the toner that's needed for the copiers and local printers. But I really think that examining the concept of work from home in greater detail going forward is going to be immensely important. If anything, that's what I think the last 2.5 years have really shown us. I'm a systems architect for an IT company. I'm not a first responder. I'm not in that position, but I think that understanding how we can better support people in the roles that they're in, ultimately, moving away from hosted applications internally to something cloud-based, whether that be for finance or general requests for maintenance for streetlights. That would allow even more inherent flexibility as well.
That's fair. Agreed.
Does cloud-based gonna cost more?
In my experience, there is a distinct breaking point between an upfront cost and a recurring cost. I think it's in terms of from a budget aspect, if I wanted to create a budget and say it costs this much per person per month for the Canvas, we can assign that cost and incorporate that based upon the software applications that they need to use. So that way we can actually get real granular with the data. Upfront cost, not so much. There is definitely a break point. So the more the quantity of licenses will definitely affect that part, that bottom line price point. But generally you're going to be paying more out of pocket upfront, dependent on how long that length of contract is for a cloud-based service as well. So there basically just needs to be a cost benefit analysis at that point.
Right. I think too, when you have positions like we do in public works or that we're looking at from a stormwater standpoint, the inspectors, the Jeff Wissner, the code officer, I start to look at it from the standpoint of if we're looking at building improvements, do we need 3 office spaces for somebody, for people here, or 5 or however many, when the majority of their day is outside? I want them to be as efficient out in the field as they might be inside. And, we can, if they're doing more of their job out where they're actually working, we can make better use of the space in
Absolutely.
here. So that has to be part of the decisions
Mhm.
moving forward.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of kept hitting on that work from home, is because of that. You're going to be able to, the ideal application would be that if somebody comes in, they just sit at a desk and are able to work if they need to do so here. And that's what I think would be a very strong goal, is to make it so that, like the police officers downstairs, it's independent of where they want to work. It just supports them how they work ultimately.
Is there any annoyances that need fixed? I know that's a loaded
That'll be taken
question.
care of Friday at 5.
That's usually taken care of by 3 p.m. at least that day. You'll
Yeah.
put it together.
Yeah, I get it.
No, the biggest, the one thing I would like to expand on, and I think would be very valuable, and I even think opening this up to the public would be very beneficial, is that we did do security training, and it was very well received by the staff members that did come, including members of the police department and public works.
Mhm.
So I think expanding that out further, I know Kathy and I have had a number of conversations about SharePoint and its use and its functionality based upon what device. I think that would be very beneficial, because for some, it's a different way of thinking. So I don't really view them as annoyances per se, outside of Microsoft deciding to update something that breaks everything. But how do we, instead of view them as annoyances, look at them as opportunities, and how do we approach those opportunities?
And one thing that I want to say, since Praveen is here, and if you don't know, Praveen is PM, and I just want to say that having Andy present and working with us over the last several years has been a terrific fit. Andy works well with our staff, and to be perfectly honest with you, works so well with the staff at this point that I think we think of him as one of us, those days when he's here. So we couldn't have asked for a better partner.
Thank you for that. And plus, this is the first time we've actually experienced me talking in a professional.
I had to do a double take to see if it was really you.
Your comments mean it's working.
Exactly,
I mean,
that's
that's like
exactly
the-
right.
Quick summary of it's working perfect.
It's working the way we had all hoped.
Yeah, most definitely.
So that's good. So thank you for all that you've been doing.
Absolutely.
It made a huge difference.
And we're always a phone call and an email away. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate. Bob and the staff can attest, Melinda can attest, that we tend to respond to emails in under 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
Very quickly. And I appreciate all the help, getting me caught up to speed on a lot of things, and getting all the equipment ready. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Great.
Well, thank you all for your time. It's much appreciated. And again, we thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you in the morning.
All right. Moving on to the website updates. Obviously, Mike is not here, and he did not get a chance to send me anything. His aunt passed away.
saw that.
Yeah, so we'll give them a little bit of a break. I know we have gotten a number of additional surveys in because I've read through and caught, but I wasn't keeping tally on where we stand with that. And I know we were going to keep it open till the end of June, right?
Mhm.
So again, I would encourage folks, friends, get your friends and neighbors to spend a few minutes and fill out one of those surveys. That would be great. Did you get a chance to send over to Bob?
I did not yet.
Okay.
So should I send that to Tricia now?
But-
It's kind of like the RFP type thing for the
Oh.
website.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. If you do that too.
Yep.
So Trish is gonna basically run with this from your perspective, from your side at this point.
Well, I think there's gonna be a
Tricia
group
and
of
RJ,
people.
RJ, yes.
Tricia, RJ, John
Okay,
will be involved
okay,
in it. Probably RJ and John more so than Tricia, only because I think Tricia will be tied up with the enterprise software.
so do you want Joe to send it over to
I think I
RJ?
would still send it to her, or just send it to Tricia and then we can get it.
All three of them.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right, good. Savvy Citizen Renewal, is that coming up?
Yeah, the timing is gonna be such that
We have to do
we'll
it,
have to do a 1-year extension.
but we can do just a 1 year?
Yes,
And when is that? Is that a July 1 or is that, do you remember?
yes,
That's what I thought. So,
It's
okay,
about $2,000.
yeah, something like that. I mean, it's not a significant amount of money to be spending, but we just,
And then
we
needed,
can't do anything.
yeah, you need it for 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
right.
Best case, so.
All right, we'll live with it. Okay. Anything else then on the website update? And I apologize, we don't have more from Mike, but. And I don't think, has anything been done about the interns?
They,
Intern?
I know that between Sandy and John, there's been discussions with LaRoche.
Mhm.
So that's moving forward
Okay,
in some manner.
Okay.
But I can't tell you more. I'm sorry.
okay, that's fine. I will ask, give Mike a week or so, and then I'll reach out to him and ask him if he can kind of pull some things together. You know, it's been really busy, so.
Just get a little update.
Yeah, get an update and kind of, see where we are, because I want to make sure this keeps moving. So that we can do kind of the point of, improving communications and everything. We need the right, a robust platform to work from. And we can launch a lot of things. So, okay, good. 2023 budget items. Before we kind of get into that, the enterprise software sheet is moving forward with Springbrook.
Yeah, we're just, we're trying to coordinate the installation with Franklin Park,
Okay,
because they're going to be
right,
moving
right.
to it. And there's a question in Franklin Park about some payment method that Tricia told me which one it was, and then
Venmo.
and they, for some reason, they want to be able to use that, and that's sort of throwing a wrench into that process out there. But well, the reason why we're trying to coordinate with them is getting the training or trainers in at one
That makes sense.
time.
Yeah.
So so that's occurring, but
Is that joint? Like, is it going to be joint, or is it still going to be completely separate?
I don't know how far they've discussed that. It makes sense, but I think if they can do anything jointly, they will.
'Cause that should save a
It
little
should
bit
save-
of money for both, I would think.
Yeah, I would think it.
Yeah, it
Get
would
them
help,
in.
for both organizations.
Yeah.
And is anything moving with Tracer, or are we just?
Yeah, we're firming up the pricing because we're we're making adjustments
To the
on
module.
what Springbrook, what we're doing there, with what Tracer offers,
Okay.
and making sure of all the modules and the timing
Okay,
there, but it's all moving forward.
okay, good. And then the other things for the 2023 budget items, we had talked last time about, again, similar to what, focusing on our first responders. We should probably set up time with them, with both chiefs, to talk through what needs. Sounds like we've made some big improvements with police.
And I did speak with Chief Hawk, and I spoke with Jeff and with the other Jeff to start considering some of the things they need as far as
Okay.
technology and preparing for this upcoming budget, and then to prioritize.
Do you want me to reach out to them and schedule some time? We can do a
That would be
little
great.
detour, a little more deep
I think that was so valuable when
when we did that
when you
before.
did it before. And we've come so far, I mean, between what we've accomplished physically, where we are with the software upgrades, that we can start to look forward in certain places. So I think, the fact that you have a new fire marshal
Right.
with different ideas.
Jeff's been around for a little while now.
Yeah. So if you have him, Jeff Shaman has been in his position for over a year.
Yeah,
So I think it makes sense
okay,
to have those conversations with
Yeah.
them. What the needs are at this point,
Mhm.
and where the priorities are. So I think it's a good starting point.
yeah, when we did this before, you coordinated, but since you're leaving, I'll go ahead and reach out or have it.
If you want me to, I will. I'm gonna be here tomorrow. I can probably.
If you just want to give them a heads up, that I'll reach out to them.
Okay,
and-
we'll do that.
And
Jeffs
then-
are not here. Two
What?
of the Jeffs will not
They
be
won't
back
be here?
until Monday.
Okay, well,
Jeff Shaneman and Jeff Frazier.
Okay, I can leave a message and just say that
that I'm gonna be reaching out
Yeah.
and to schedule some time with it, we'll sit down and like we've done in the past
And I can.
and
help
get
with
as
that
many,
too.
and I'll help, with that. I'll copy you on what I'm sending.
Yeah.
And we can get it coordinated and whoever can join, feel free like we did last time, and basically said, this is just an open discussion as to what are some of the technology, and it doesn't have to just be software.
did we end up hiring a code enforcement officer yet?
Yes,
Okay, so they should be included in this too.
that'll be the 16th that he starts.
He starts at 6, let's give him a little time. He starts June 16th?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe Lynn, if you can help me, maybe sometime in August, we do that one,
Sure.
when he's had at least 60 days.
Because I think
Or she on 60 days.
the majority of what he would be doing would be probably working through the Tracer program for enforcement ultimately, once that's up and running. And that would be cloud-based, so it would just be getting him up on a surface like the others and
Yeah, and that's
working off of that.
That
That I think will be the majority of.
The majority of what he
Yeah.
is. Okay, well then let's just focus on
All right.
fire and police for the time.
Public Works.
I would do, I think I would do
You wanna
public
do
works.
public, do
Yeah.
public works too? Okay.
Yeah, because you're gonna have a different mindset than you did.
All right, so if you wouldn't mind, just give them a heads up
I will do
that
that.
I will be reaching out, and then you and I can work on getting some things scheduled, Zoom or in person or whatever. But it's just to kind of talk through what their wish list might be. And again, emphasize, it's not just software, any other technology kind of things that they're thinking of, challenges that they might have. This is an open discussion. We're just looking for information so that we can help.
One question, I don't know if you can answer it, Andy. Has Chief talked to you at all about where we're gonna store all this body cam?
Yeah, actually, in the area where the server is located, the racks are gonna go right on the wall that was previously occupied by the multifunction copier. So they'll actually be mounted there for the charging racks, and then the actual data docks will be right on top
How long can we keep it?
for the data, or
How long?
30 days.
30 days?
The
Yeah.
storage is 30 days unless it's requested to be held.
yeah, and then that's also going to interface with the cruiser cams as well. So there will be one repository for those recordings going forward,
That's a
which
big
is,
Did the canine get a body cam?
I know there was, honestly, I know that there was talk about it.
It's not a
It's not a bad
Not a
idea.
That's not a
Not a
bad
bad
idea
idea at all. If you're gonna do, no, sir.
That's actually,
It's an officer,
Uh-huh.
you know, if we put Officer Joy.
first
with-
responder.
Yep.
Yeah, if we put Officer Joy with a GoPro and set a day in the life of a canine officer, I
that-
think that would be actually something very.
That'd be
cool.
great.
Yeah,
That would be a good thing to,
I still
Good PR.
remember,
Yeah.
to this day, I still remember them doing that during the Bush administration and Barney wandering through the White House with a GoPro on his back.
really?
Yeah, it was around Christmas time. It was hilarious to
We gotta check that out.
see where all Barney went.
And speaking of the 2023 budget, the one thing that I will mention that I doubt the officers will is that the cruiser laptops are in need of being replaced.
Okay.
And, you know, we may want to explore researching a grant for them because they're brand new, about $4,500.
yeah, we should.
So that is if we keep the same spec. I don't necessarily think they needed it as robust of a laptop because you don't really see them taking them out of the cruiser. So, yeah, I really discussing with them what their actual needs are and see what we can actually reduce.
That's a good question for Chief Hawk. So when we sit down and talk with him.
And yeah, the reality is if you give them $1,200 laptop and you have to replace it every year.
You're still better off than,
Yeah, you know, we've in the last year, in addition to replacing that one unit, we've also had to replace keyboards in several of them and touchscreens in several of them as well. So we're getting to the point where it's
they need.
those expenses are going to start adding up. pretty
Yeah, and
quickly.
I think when we started this, they needed, I mean,
They
I don't
did.
think we're much better
Yeah.
placed with those at this point.
No.
so.
No, because I remember those were on the list. They were
Mhm.
further down the list than.
Eddie, do you know of any
many,
grants?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but I'd be more than happy to start researching.
Probably through Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and
Great.
Delinquency.
Yeah, that would be awesome. If
Yes.
Yeah, most definitely.
be
Absolutely.
great. Okay. Anything else for 2023?
You'll probably hear about traffic cams again
Yeah.
from the chief.
And I know Craig, you were gonna dust off what you had done before.
Yeah, I started digging into it, and what had been available at the time has changed drastically. So I need to dig into it further. It wasn't as easy to update as I thought it would be. But
Great.
The other thing that's happened since you first looked at that, Craig, is that we've been undertaking a fairly significant maintenance evaluation of all of the traffic signal systems. So I think we're in a much better position knowing what some of the situations are out there from a maintenance standpoint and what some of the needs are. So you guys may hear more about traffic signalization too.
Okay. Great. All right, good.
The last thing that I'm thinking of is, I'm not sure how this would work, but, you know, potentially some type of information flow between our offices, or specifically the fire marshal's office and the volunteer fire companies in terms of building plans and the like.
Okay.
So,
That doesn't surprise me either.
It's all fairly straightforward.
Yeah, it's all things that we've really kind of touched on
Touched on at some point in
at some
time.
point over the
Yeah.
last three plus years.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on 2023 budget? Any other business this evening? No, going once? Going twice? All right. Our next meeting then is July 6th. Will be a very empty chair over in the corner.
Me too, I won't be there either.
Oh, that's right, you're not gonna be here, so
I'll
Bob,
have his surgery, so.
so Jack will be here. Okay, so we'll need to brief Jack beforehand, okay? We can do that, absolutely.
And I think the game plan at this point is that Melinda will continue to attend,
Okay,
and if there's a need for other staff, just touch base and somebody else can be here, but I think you're in wonderful hands with Melinda.
we are in wonderful hands. And if you look at what we've got, really is the website update from, depending on what, comes back from Mike on that. And then scheduling those meetings. I know we're coming up towards end of school, we're coming up towards vacation, so this may take us a little while to get, in front of everybody, but that's really gonna be the focus, I think, then for the next meeting or so. Okay. Yep. Does anyone want to propose that we adjourn? Do I hear a move?
Second.
Second. Okay, we are adjourned at 7:12.
Record time.
And it's not raining yet.
Not
So I
raining.
got us out before the storm, so.
Yeah, I could have brought this for you.